military men, if you like, from America and from Britain. They feel that there is progress being made on the military front. From an insider's point of view, does it feel like a more stable country? Do you feel you're making progress on that front?
Unfortunately, no. There are a lot of mistakes being made. Number one mistake is that we are calling this a war, what should be called an extreme insurgency. Number two, we are comparing the situation in Afghanistan to Iraq. You can no longer compare Afghanistan to Iraq, then you can compare the North Pole to the Sahara Desert. And the most important factor is that they're totally disregarding the people of Afghanistan. I mean, everybody's talking about the Al-Qaeda and the Taliban and the government and so on and so forth, but they talk about the people of Afghanistan in the third person, as if the people did not exist. No military power can win in Afghanistan. We have shown this over 5,000 years of history. The people have to get involved in their own life. The people have to get involved in their own future. Every single conference that has taken place, outside of Afghanistan, not inside. Nobody has consulted with the people of Afghanistan to see if they really appreciate or they really like the systems that's being imposed upon them. Afghanistan is a tribal nation. Was, is, and will always be. 90% of the people of Afghanistan are living in the 18th century. Okay? In order for us to succeed in Afghanistan, we have to do what our forefathers did. Work with the tribes, work with the people. We are not Iraqis, we are not Arabs. We are Pashtuns, Tajiks, Uzbeks, Hazaras, a number of different tribes living, in one territory. So it is extremely important that if we're going to succeed in Afghanistan, we must involve the people in the future, and we must involve the people in guaranteeing the security of the country. The Russians had 200,000 troops in Afghanistan. They could not do it. We must not make Afghanistan into a battleground any more than it is.
So what about the role of the international peacekeeping troops here? I mean, are they welcome? Are they doing the job that's needed in this country, or is it, as some say, exacerbating the problem? What do you think?
It's exacerbating the problem. See, why are we considering international peace? Why don't we talk about national peace forces? Why don't we talk about the nation police force like they did in Malaya, 1948 to 1960? Why don't we forget the word war? By calling this a war, we're actually insulting the soldier in uniform, because that soldier in uniform is fighting against a ragtag individual, a murderer who has come from Chechnya, from Saudi Arabia, from Uzbekistan, from different parts of the world. There are three types of groups, Talib, if you want to call it that, fighting in Afghanistan. You have got the black Talib, which we call the black Talib. These are the ones that come from outside. They have no religious agenda and they don't have any political agenda. They are there for the money and for chaos. Then you have the gray Talib, which are Afghans who have been used to fighting, and these are the mercenaries who are out there to guard, to sell their services for guarding the convoys and so on and so forth. Then you have the white Talib, who's very frustrated with his life. He's very frustrated with the poverty, with the hunger, and with the disorganization within the country. And so he's picked up arms against the government and the coalition. All we got to do, yes?
Yeah, I was going to say, I want to come back to that in a minute and whether we can talk about reintegration and a peace process, but let's bring in the gentleman in the UK and in Washington. Colonel Stuart Tootle, I mean, you're hearing the Prince there, I'm sure, and his view about the difficulties of having, if you like, foreign troops here. Do you feel that a job can be done while still, in a way, respecting the tribal system and looking for that chance to build bridges with the local people?
Well, I think Prince Abdullah raises some very important points. I mean, absolutely, the tribal dynamic is key in Afghanistan and has been throughout the history of that particular nation. He highlights a point about, is it a war, is it a counterinsurgency? I mean, there are some semantics here, but it's certainly seen as a counterinsurgency campaign by NATO. And an important part of any counterinsurgency campaign, and the Prince is absolutely right, that is often the military will be secondary and subordinate. And the reason I say that is to highlight the point that I think NATO are very clear, and yes, mistakes have been made in the past, but they are very clear that their is absolutely a civil line to be followed, and in some ways that line will sometimes be more important. And perhaps part of the bridge between the NATO military line and the civil development, which is about capacity building of the Afghan government themselves,